You see that headline and your mind goes straight to comparison, straight to worry, straight to insecurity, and that's the trap so many people live in every single day. The truth is, when we say 95% of women like this penis the most, we're not talking about inches or size or the ridiculous myths you've picked up scrolling on your phone. What we're really talking about is the energy behind it, the man who owns it, the confidence that radiates from him when he walks into a room, the way he carries himself when he speaks, the way he looks someone in the eye without flinching, and the way he makes a woman feel safe, seen, and wanted without ever having to try too hard. That's the secret people don't want to admit. That's what the 95% are drawn to. It's not flesh, it's presence. It's not length, it's leadership. It's not what you were born with, it's what you've built inside yourself. Too many of you waste your time comparing yourself to some made-up standard that nobody even agreed to in the first place. You live in your head, you overthink, you convince yourself that you're not enough, and then you wonder why you keep sabotaging opportunities with women, with relationships, with intimacy. The truth is, you're not losing because of your body. You're losing because of your mind. You're losing because you've handed your power away to fear, to comparison, to shame. And here's the crazy thing. Women aren't looking for the guy who's perfect on paper. They're not looking for the guy who's flawless. They're looking for the guy who owns himself. The guy who walks into a room and says, "This is me, take it or leave it." That's the man who wins. That's the man who doesn't get forgotten. That's the man who 95% are drawn to again and again. You want proof? Think back on the people you've met who seemed magnetic. They weren't all models. They weren't all ripped. They weren't all the tallest or the richest or the smoothest. But they had something. They had certainty. They had the guts to show up without apologizing. They didn't let their insecurities take the microphone. And that's the truth you need to hear today. 95% of women like this penis the most because it belongs to a man who believes in himself, who respects himself, who treats intimacy not as a performance but as a connection. That's the secret, and it's been in front of you the whole time. So stop scrolling, stop comparing, stop shrinking yourself because of a story you made up in your head. Start building the habits, the discipline, the confidence that will actually make you magnetic. Because when you stand in your own power, when you stop apologizing for who you are, when you actually show up with clarity and certainty, you'll finally understand why it's never been about size. It's been about presence, ownership, and the energy you bring into every single interaction. That's what 95% respond to. That's what they remember. And that is available to you the moment you decide to claim it. Women are not obsessed with size, they are obsessed with presence. And presence is not something you are born with, it's something you build. Think about it for a second. You've met men who weren't the tallest, the strongest, or even the most attractive by conventional standards, yet when they walked into a room, everybody noticed. They didn't have to say much, they didn't have to perform, they just had to be. That's presence. It's the way your body language speaks before your mouth does. It's the energy that fills the air around you. It's the quiet confidence that says, "I know who I am, and I don't need your approval to validate me." That is magnetic. That is unforgettable. That is what 95% of women actually want. Presence tells a story without words. When you carry yourself with your shoulders back, eyes lifted, and voice steady, you communicate strength and stability. When you stand tall, not in arrogance but in assurance, people feel it. And here's the key. Presence makes a woman feel safe. Safe enough to relax. Safe enough to be herself. Safe enough to lean in. Because when you are grounded, she feels grounded too. That's why it matters more than looks, more than status, more than the insecurities that you replay in your mind. The mistake so many men make is they try to replace presence with noise. They try too hard to be funny, too loud, too flashy, too over the top. But women aren't pulled in by a performance, they're pulled in by authenticity. They want to feel like they are with someone who knows himself, not someone who is begging to be noticed. Presence is the opposite of desperation. It's the quiet power of not needing to prove anything. And that's what makes it so rare, so valuable, so irresistible. If you want to develop presence, you don't need to buy anything, you don't need to change your body, and you don't need to become someone else. You need to practice being here. Presence is about mindfulness, about attention, about showing up fully in the moment instead of living in your head. When you speak, mean what you say. When you listen, really listen. When you touch, be intentional. It's not about doing more, it's about being more. And the moment you step into that, the game changes. Because women aren't scanning for perfection, they're scanning for connection. They're looking for the man who makes them feel grounded, secure, alive. That is presence, and that is what they like the most. Women crave confidence, not comparison. And this is where most men get it wrong. They waste their energy measuring themselves against other people, stacking their flaws against someone else's highlight reel, and then wondering why they feel small. Comparison is poison. It robs you of your strength, it kills your momentum, and it convinces you that you're not enough before you even step into the game. The truth is, women aren't scanning for the guy who checks every box. They're not looking for the one who looks the most perfect in a lineup. They're looking for the one who is bold enough to show up without apology. That's confidence. And that's what 95% are attracted to. Confidence isn't about being the loudest guy in the room, it isn't about being cocky, and it isn't about pretending you've got it all figured out. Confidence is the decision to trust yourself even when you don't have all the answers. It's the willingness to speak your truth without watering it down. It's walking into a conversation without the need to perform, because you know your value doesn't hinge on someone else's approval. And here's the magic. When you trust yourself, other people feel it. Confidence is contagious. It calms the room. It gives her permission to trust you, because you trust yourself first. Think about the opposite for a second. A man who is constantly doubting himself, constantly second-guessing every move, constantly worrying whether women remember how you make them feel more than anything else. That's the truth that so many men miss, and it's why they stay stuck thinking they need to impress with looks, money, or status. You can drive the nicest car, wear the sharpest suit, or have the smoothest lines, but if she doesn't feel something when she's with you, it won't matter. Attraction isn't built on appearances, it's built on emotions. What lasts, what lingers, what she carries with her long after the moment is over, is the way you made her feel in your presence. That's the imprint you leave, and that's what keeps you unforgettable. So what does that mean in practice? It means connection matters more than performance. It means eye contact that says you see her, not just her body but her as a person. It means listening without rushing to respond, actually hearing her words instead of waiting for your turn to talk. It means making her feel like she matters, not because you're trying to get something from her, but because you genuinely value who she is. That's what creates a spark. That's what makes her lean in instead of pull away. Here's the thing. People forget words, but they never forget feelings. Think about your own life. The teachers, friends, or mentors you remember most aren't the ones who had the fanciest speeches, they're the ones who made you feel capable, supported, inspired. The same truth applies in relationships. You can be funny, smart, attractive, or ambitious, but if being around you leaves her feeling unseen, unimportant, or drained, it won't last. On the flip side, if she feels alive, wanted, respected, and safe when she's with you, she'll keep coming back. Making someone feel good isn't about fake charm or manipulation. It's about authenticity. It's about dropping your ego and being present. When you show up with honesty, when you give your attention fully, when you treat her like more than a checklist, you create an emotional impact that's rare in a world where most people are distracted and self-absorbed. That emotional impact is what women remember. That's what sticks in their minds long after the details fade. So stop obsessing over whether you're saying the perfect line or whether you're doing everything right. Start focusing on energy. Focus on intention. Focus on creating a space where she feels valued. Because that's what turns an interaction into a memory. That's what makes you stand out. And that's why women remember how you make them feel above everything else.